What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Nintendo Land, and today we are ranking every single DLC track within Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. From Booster Pass Wave 1 all the way to Wave 3, we are ranking all 24 tracks. Now, this criteria that I'm ranking them is based on the track design, on how challenging that track is, and the music and atmosphere of that track. And of course, this is my personal list. If you guys disagree, that's completely fine. Of course, not everyone is going to like my number 1, and not everybody is going to like my number 24. It's just how things go. Everybody has their own separate favorite track, and I have my own favorite, but I try not to use my favoritism and just really looked at how good these tracks actually were on paper. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to stay up to date on all things Mario Kart and all things Nintendo in general. And let's get into the list of the best DLC Booster Pass track, ranking all 24. Starting the list as the worst track in the DLC, in my opinion, is Sky High Sunday. I'm sorry, I know there's some people out there that do like it. It's very colorful, but it's just weird. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of it. The entire track, you are in zero gravity tire mode, which means you're kind of not moving that fast. And every time you fall off of high cliffs and platforms, you slowly fall to the ground. And I don't know, it just feels like you're not going fast at all. And it's just one big loop. Just one giant oval and you're done. I'm not a big fan of this one. It is one of the newer tracks made specifically for this game and Mario Kart Tour, like at the same time, I think it was. I'm just not a big fan of it. I don't think it's that good at all, and it's just kind of boring when you're playing with your friends. Toad Circuit is one of the very earlier stages you get to play in Mario Kart 7, which is very confusing why they decided to put it in this game. It's not like Toad has an extreme lack of tracks or something, and there's better tracks I think they could have chose. For instance, Toad's Factory, but this one is just not that good. It's just a very basic track. It's over before you even know it, and there's not many shortcuts or anything to take unless you just take the pipes at the end. That's really all you have in this track. It's not a lot going on. A lot of people hated the textures of everything, and they completely got improved, I think, after everyone complained about this track. But this one is just not that good. The atmosphere just feels like a normal day in the hills, and you just got some toad balloons floating in the air. I don't think this track is necessarily bad on its debut, Mario Kart 7, but in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, especially when we're paying for DLC, this definitely didn't feel like a track that a lot of people, or really anybody, wanted back. Look, I've never been to Tokyo, so it's hard for me to judge if this is actually based off of some of these real-life locations, but Tokyo Blur doesn't feel like Tokyo to me. I don't know, the music doesn't feel like Tokyo, the atmosphere, everything around it doesn't feel like Tokyo, and maybe that's just me, being ignorant and not knowing information about Tokyo. Maybe this really actually looks like Tokyo and, feels like Tokyo for people that live there. You guys definitely have to let me know, but I don't know, it doesn't feel like a Blur, it feels like Tokyo Walk or something. I don't know, it's just not going that fast. I feel like it's just long paths of just driving straight. There's not many obstacles, there's just random thwomps everywhere. I just don't 100% get what this track is supposed to be. It's not entertaining, the laps don't change that much at all, and it's just very slow paced to me. I would like to see more interaction with the city around us and just kind of giving us more Tokyo themes like we see with some of the tracks, and this one just didn't do a lot to excite me the entire time. Look, I actually kind of like Boo Lake from Wave 3, and I actually think it's kind of fun, but it is an extremely, and I mean extremely short track. You are over very quick. Besides Baby Park, I think it might be one of the shortest. It's over before you even blink. There's one crucial shortcut, and the rest is kind of just straight driving. It's fun, but it's hard to pass other racers in this track just because it's so straightforward, and there's just some barely any curves or bends in this at all. And I don't know, I just feel like it's not changed up enough. I like changing up classic tracks just enough to give it some flair and make it like a little longer, give some shortcuts and stuff, and they tried to do that here, but it still comes up a little too short. They should have expanded the track a little bigger, added some more underwater sections, and kind of going in and out of the water back and forth would have been really cool. But it's still a kind of fun track to me, but I can recognize a lot of people probably not liking this one too much. Paris Promenade is not bad by any means. I do not think it's a bad track. I just think it's very, safe. I don't think there's a lot going on. There's two different paths you can take all the time, through the Eiffel Tower or to the left through the town, and through some pipes and stuff like that, and that's cool. I really do like this track. Kind of flying towards the Eiffel Tower is very cinematic feeling, and I love that last lap going in reverse. It was the first time we've seen this in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and it was really cool. It's just, not doing anything super crazy that we see later on. It's very safe, it's all I have to say. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just very safe and very basic because of that. Look, I've been to New York City, so I can at least comment on this one. Being in the city at night just feels so New York. I mean, going through that little park as well, it's absolutely awesome, perfect touch. But where the track starts to have problems is kind of the layout and the challenge factor. For instance, none of the cars move whatsoever on this track. The taxis are parked, so there's really nobody moving in the streets, which just does not feel like New York for sure. But I get it, it's nighttime, no one's really moving, yeah. But the track is a little safe. There's not a lot going on. You know, I like the end where you're kind of going through the parking garage and then going through the little theater area, but they needed more of that. I would like to see maybe going over the rooftops and stuff, or going through back alleys to really kind of bring home that New York feel, but unfortunately it's just kind of the same. Go through the park, go through the park taxis again, and that's it. I am a complete simp for anything Christmas themed. I love Christmas time, and having a track themed around Christmas is a dream come true in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. This is a beautiful track, and I love the 2 different paths you can take in the beginning, and it's just so cool going all the way up this giant snow mountain as, you know, Christmas sleighs and trains are flying around you, and all these Christmas themed Toads and Yoshis, and then making your way to the tippy top of the mountain and dropping all the way back down is a lot of fun. I really love the atmosphere, I love the music, I love the vibes of this track, but my only complaint, and it's one that's actually kind of big, is going down the mountain feels very slow. There's no rush at all. There's a couple of spin pads, but that's about it. No boost pads, nothing to help you get down faster. I'm sure in 200cc it feels a lot better, but right now it's just so slow going down that snow mountain. I feel like we should be flying down the snow and ice, and it's just a little too slow for my liking, but I still really like this track. Also forgot to mention that it has a brutal shortcut by the presence, and it completely wipes out the top part of the mountain, making for extreme jumps into first place. I think London Loop is a perfect middle of the road track. I think it could be really good, and I think it could be really long sometimes. Yeah, London Loop is a very long track, and you will definitely feel it towards the last lap. But at the end of the day, it's fun. I mean, it's fun to go throughout the different little areas inside the building, and then you can see the barrels and stuff, and you get to go back outside, lots of little bends and curves and chain chomps everywhere, and I love how the final lap, all the chain chomps break free and try to attack you as they're kind of just racing down the road with you. Like I said, my only real complaint is the fact that it is kind of long. It feels very long when you're racing on this thing, but it's still a fun track. Choco Mountain stays very true to its classic roots. It just feels so classic. The music is classic, the track design is still very classic. I love this track. And of course, racing around that mountain, watching the boulders fall and trying to dodge them is a lot of fun with a lot of racers on the track. I don't have a lot bad to say about this one. It's just a really good track, and I'm glad to see its return. The Wii Classic Mushroom Gorge. Now, I know a lot of people are probably going to really like this track and probably put it a lot higher than I did, but I think it is a very mixed bag. I think you can have a lot of fun here. There's a lot of stuff going on, there's a lot of bounces. It's a very different track than normal. You're not just racing, you're bouncing a lot. There's different paths you can take on the mushrooms, and you really can set up how you want to for this track, of course with an ultimate shortcut at the end if you can hit it. Clearly, I can't hit it. As fun as this track can be, it can be very miserable as well. If you're moving too fast sometimes, the bounces can just be all over the place. There's sometimes where you can just bounce too far and you'll fall off. Sometimes you'll bounce too short and you'll fall off. So yeah, sometimes it just doesn't work the way it's intended to, and I find this happen a lot, believe it or not. And of course, if you get hit by any items over these mushrooms, you're dropping into that gorge and you're gone, because sometimes Lakitu brings you all the way back and really puts you in a hole. So I guess you can just call this track chaotic fun. Sky Garden is just one of those tracks that feels good. I love the new update to it, and of course some people may not like it. They might like the original version better, but I love that just giant swooping shortcut at the end. Look, mushrooms. But yeah, this track is short and sweet. I really have nothing bad to say about it. You really kind of want to be in second place at the end because getting that mushroom is so crucial. It's probably one of the bigger shortcuts in the entire game. It can definitely win a race just by having a single mushroom, but I love that. It gives it that last minute factor where anyone can finish that finish line. You never know who's got the heat in the back of the pack and who can jump ahead. I really love this track. Snowland is probably one of my favorites in the DLC. It's a classic brought back in a fun way, and I gotta kind of put my favoritism down a little bit and just talk about the track as a whole. It's a fun snow track. It's nothing crazy, but it's just short and sweet, and it feels like it's just enough to be a fun track. It's not too long, it's not too short, and it's just a really fun track to play on with tons of shortcuts. I mean, seriously, if you have mushrooms at all, you're blasting through the snow in various different ways. Through the snowman, over the gaps, over the ravines, through this super secret shortcut that no one's ever seen in their life. It's just a lot of fun, and it definitely is one of my favorites in this game. Just make sure you don't hit that final shortcut the way I just did. I was never a big fan of Calamari Desert, and when I heard it was returning, I really didn't have anything else to say. I was like, oh, okay, it is what it is, because it's just a giant slow loop around a mountain. But they changed it up so well, because the second lap starts shifting things. You get this random ramp appear that leads you straight into the tunnel in which the train is coming through, which is so crazy, and absolute chaos and mayhem can ensue inside of that tunnel. But I just love the shortcuts as well. You can just fly throughout the entire track or just boost through the desert sand with mushrooms. I love the changes that they made to this track, making it one of my favorites. But also, brownie points to anybody that can guess why I picked Larry on this track. We have talked about classic tracks a lot so far, but Mario Circuit 3 is the classic track. It doesn't do much at all to change up the way this track is designed, but it just keeps it simple, and there's something about its simplicity that's very, very rewarding and very, very addicting. My friends literally pick this track all the time just because it's mad cuts. All you need is mushrooms and you're good to go. You're blasting through every which way in the sand to get ahead of the person in front of you. I love this track because absolute chaos can ensue as well, like I said, with people just blasting through with mushrooms, and it's a very basic track that keeps its roots in touch. It's a very good track with fun drifts and rewarding shortcuts. Not to mention it also has a super secret shortcut. Peach Gardens was a surprising one for me because I never was a huge fan of this track. It was always good, but nothing crazy. But just changing one lap at the end was enough to really make me think that this track is an extremely good version of it. Now, what you do is pretty much just drive through Peach's garden. There's different hedges themed after different characters, and there's nothing much else to see. Of course, Chain Chomp's running through the garden as well with Monty Moles towards the end, but that last lap flips everything around and makes you go backwards, which is actually a big deal because it gives you a gliding section where you can actually glide through some of the hedges, such as Luigi's hand. But this track is a lot of fun with also an extreme shortcut at the end through the flowers if you have a mushroom. It can definitely be life or death. Berlin Byways is one of those few tracks with a real challenge to it. There are tons of cars with tons of traffic all over the street, and even if you hit a shortcut very precisely, there is a chance of you going straight onto oncoming traffic. And this just makes it very interesting to me. I love tracks that actually makes you have to race really good. There's lots of going inside subway areas and bumping back out into the street and just cars littered everywhere. I love how quick the turns can be and how precise you have to be driving with the narrow roads. I really do like this track, and even having womps on it just adds a nice little touch to it. The music, on the other hand, is also so strange to me, but it's so good. It has like this dubstep upbeat, tempo to begin with, and then it changes into like the national anthem, and it's just so weird and goofy, but it's also just such a nice track. Sydney Sprint has immaculate vibes. I'm just gonna say that first. The music and the locales joining together, the environment, everything about this track just screams fun. You get to race through the Opera House twice, go through this amusement park, you even get to fly over a body of water. There's just so much jam-packed into this track, and it also has a very long second lap, but it is so much fun in my opinion. It switches it up just enough to continue your excitement and keep you engaged in the track long enough, even with that long second lap, and it is just one of my favorite themed tracks from the real world. I love Sydney Sprint. Okay, this one might be a little bit of bias, but I don't know what it is about Shroom Ridge. It is just so mesmerizing to me. All it is just a giant street full of cars. Once again, having that challenge as well, but it's just beautiful. The scenery with the mountains and the hills and the trees and the flowers, it just feels so good, and the music is perfect. Maybe a lot of it comes from the fact that I started off playing Mario Kart on the DS when I was a little boy, and it's just such a nostalgic feeling playing on this track again. And the music is just not good, it has a nostalgic tone to it. I can't quite put my finger on it. It's like some of the same instruments are being used for the remix. It's one of the best remixes I think they could have ever done. I love this track to death, and the shortcuts are more spectacular in this track as well. You get to go through the flowers into a glider section and even jump over a ravine off the road in order to fly back on the road. I love Shroom Ridge so much. It has a special place in my heart, and I think that nostalgic factor is a big reason why I love it so much. I have a very similar love to Rock Mountain the same way I do with Shroom Ridge. It's kind of just a basic drive on a road, or this time a dirt path, going through a cave and then flying over an alpine forest. I love the forest section. It feels so clean. It's like something that we've never really seen too much of in the Mario Kart series. Just a dirt road going through a pine forest, but it does so in such a beautiful way. It has a beautiful background with hills and clouds and this rock mountain wrapping around the entire map, and not to forget the final stretch climbing up a mountain with boulders falling down, and you get to glide through the finish line and over on the outside of the track, which just feels so cool as you're in the air. I love the aerial aspect of this track, and it's just something very unique, unlike anything we've seen so far in the Mario Kart series. Now we are down to the final 5, and number 5 I have Ninja Hideaway, a special track that was made specifically for Mario Kart Tour and kind of a new track for a lot of us. This track is such a beautifully designed track. This is the Tokyo Blur that I really wanted, and we got it here. This track is beautiful. It reminds me of Hands on Hall from Mario 3D World and somehow is actually Wario themed. I love going in and out of the ninja castles, seeing the inner working of the castle and flying through the rooftops while ninja Shy Guys appear. This stage has so much love built into it. But on top of that, it's just a fun track to play with challenging road turns as well, and also some fun little shortcuts. But the only gripe I do have is that roof section at the end can get a little tricky, and not tricky in the right reasons. It's just kind of awkwardly placed, and the curves and turns at the end can be a little weird, but at the end of the day, this track is too beautiful, too awesome to place it anywhere beneath number 5. Not to mention, the music is amazing. I know Waluigi Pinball could be very overrated for a lot of people because everyone loves this track, but I still have to tell you just how amazingly unique it is. Look at this track and act like it came out today. Could you imagine how amazed people would be that we're racing on a pinball track? As pinballs are racing down with you, you're changing different color lanes, and you're going through an actual pinball table at the end, even though that the stupid pinball hits me every time, bouncing off the bumpers. This track is full of life and detail, from the little sound effects when you go through item boxes and go through different pinball chutes. This track is made with love first, and a lot of people have to realize that just because a lot of people love this track doesn't mean this track isn't amazing, because if it released today, people would absolutely lose their mind over the creativity. We haven't really seen anything this creative in quite a long time. Coming in at number 3, we have 3DS's Rainbow Road. Now this track is just known in the Mario Kart community for being a fan favorite. It is beautiful. It is hands down the best Rainbow Road ever. It is just an absolute stunning display of what Nintendo can do with this DLC, and I'm so glad they piped everything they could into the graphics, because this upgrade is phenomenal. The planets are all detailed, space has individual stars and different galaxies that you can see. I just love everything about this. Even the road that you're on actually feels like Rainbow Road. It's shiny, it's glittery, it just feels like it's almost moving too with you. It is a beautiful track with tons of little boosts and extra little objects that don't appear in really any other track. I love jumping down into the moon and seeing the different chain chomps roll around and seeing rockets there, and even going around the rings of Saturn, or even flying through the meteor herd with your glider. It just feels like such a well thought out track. It also uses the 3 checkpoint system for just one long giant track, which just feels so good to finish at the end. This track will always be a fan favorite and will always be a favorite of mine. If I could use one word to describe Maple Treeway, it's peaceful. It is such a peaceful track. It is beautiful too, with the fall leaves everywhere, and the new mechanic of having piles of leaves on the ground, which actually allows you to shoot out items coming all the way from Mario Kart Wii. This is awesome and a great new addition, and just adds flair to this track. Seeing the giant wigglers walk around and dodging in between them, and even doing ramps off the back wall, which is a great addition coming back from Mario Kart Wii. This track is just such a beautiful track. The music is also extremely peaceful as well, just like you're flying through a fall forest, and it just works so well with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe's art style and colorway as well. And not to mention, my sister always loved this track since we were little kids, because she said she wanted to live here. It was that peaceful, so hopefully she gets to move there sometime. But the best track in the DLC so far still has to be Coconut Mall. Coconut Mall is just an amazing concept. Racing through a mall, racing through shops, and even flying off of the super center at the end. Seriously, I don't know how you could do much better than this one. The details here are immaculate. If you just took the time to slowly drive through every section, there's so much detail, from the food court menu items to the shops that you get to bust through with mushrooms and the shortcuts, all the way to the now moving cars at the end near the parking lot. Coconut Mall impresses in so many ways. I love the soundtrack for one, which is always going to be a staple of Mario Kart soundtracks, but man, the whole atmosphere, the challenge factor, everything put together into this track really just makes it one that's incredibly difficult to ever beat. And that is why Coconut Mall falls on my #1 spot of the best DLC tracks. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Let me know in the comments down below what your track ranking would be, and what would be your top 5. What would be your #1, and what is your least favorite track? Let me know all of this down below. Thank you so much for tuning in. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed today's video. It helps a lot. Thank you so much for tuning in, and like always, I'll see you all on the next one. See ya, guys.